Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 64 of the Coffee Club podcast. Changing up the studios today. If you're watching the video version, you'll be able to tell immediately that we are no longer in Boulder, Colorado, Longmont, Colorado, anywhere in Colorado, in fact. We, Ollie and I have just returned back to the Australias, as you can see from our beautiful backdrops.
Back to the Aussie land. Beautiful day here for both of us.
Mm-hmm. It's freaking nice, man. I always forget how beautiful it is coming back here. Today's episode will be a bit of a shorter one because we have no George. Unfortunately, he has to attend the betrothal of his brother. Is that a correct way of saying that?
I think that's the correct way of saying it. George has copious responsibilities that he only found out about pretty much when he got on the plane. So he's doing rehearsal.
He's been called up to MC the wedding, which
that's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, you gotta you can't just do that with zero preparation. You definitely have to have a lot of jokes up your sleeve just to keep the night going. So he's currently getting ready to do that. So shorter episode today for us. We're just, a little bit of chit chat, talking it through. We've spent a lot of time together in the last, I guess, day. Well, yeah. I mean, to be honest, in any given day, we spend a lot of time together because we live together. But this past day for us has included 24 hours of travel, a 15-hour flight from LA to Sydney. So we've spent a lot of time to get here. So I think just to start off, just to give everybody an idea of what it's like for us coming home, I think we should both just go through exactly what we've done since we touched down, which at this point was about 6 hours ago, I want to say. And then since then, Ollie took his journey to the Sutherland Shire, the land of the surf, the swell.
God's country.
The salt, the sand. Sausage sandwiches.
Sandwiches.
Oporto. I departed. I took the lesser traveled route to Randwick, which is
less traveled. The posh area.
Yep. Yeah. Nah. Ollie always makes fun of me for living in a posh area, but really, we're just normal people here as well.
Yeah, just very, very fancy area.
No, Randwick.
I'm not allowed to I can only spend, I think, a minimum of a couple of days in where Morgan lives in Randwick area, Coogee area. Otherwise, I get deported, so I have to be sent back to the Shire.
Okay, so I don't mind joking about it, but just so that everyone does know, because if you don't know our specific areas, you wouldn't know exactly. My area is not actually that posh. I don't mind joking it, but I don't want people to get the wrong idea. So I do have to clarify where I come from.
Middle class? Upper middle class?
Yeah. Well, no, not even, to be honest. Randwick is an extremely diverse and big suburb, but near me are some very wealthy areas. I'll put it like that.
Well, so, I can say the same.
I can see them. And I mean, we live in a beautiful place here. I think both of us are very, very lucky.
Yeah, very lucky.
Where we live. So no complaints here. But no. How about you go first and just give us the rundown? We met at the airport. We met both our mothers, and you were very lucky to have Roger Hoare, your pug, there to greet you as well. And then what happened after that?
So pretty much we went to the car and drove all the way from Sydney Airport. It was about a 35-minute drive to Cronulla, which is like the local beach where I live. We went down there, went for a walk along the beach. Very beautiful. Got, the nostalgia kicking in, being back in Australia, the salt, the sand, the sun. And also just the casual, everyone in Australia kind of dresses the same. Everyone's wearing shorts and thongs and an RBCA shirt, with a hat.
Should clarify what thongs mean when you say it like that.
Flip-flops for the Americans. Flippy flops. I mean, people are probably still wearing thongs as well. You just can't see them.
Very casual.
Very casually. And ran into one of Mum's. Mum used to teach one of the girls that teaches now. So we ran into her, went in and grabbed coffee, had 2 coffees with Mum, caught up with her, had a good chat, enjoyed being down near the beach. And then Oporto was next door. Just coincidence, So I grabbed some Oporto for lunch. Took a photo of it, put it on my Instagram story, just wanted to make sure people knew that I was, back around at Oporto.
Explain Oporto to the listeners.
So Oporto is I would say Chick-fil-A is quietly high rated in America as like the place to get a good chicken sandwich. I would say the place to get a good chicken sandwich in Australia is a Porto. Like there's a Portuguese chicken place. It's similar to Nando's in a way, like similar kind of spice and style of chicken. And it's kind of like, I would classify it as healthier fast food. It's still not healthy, obviously. But it's
Those
like
fries
really
are definitely
nice.
not healthy.
The fries are definitely not, but the chicken salt, the amount of chicken salt they put in those fries, definitely not. That'll give you diabetes. In general, though, really good fast food restaurant, like super Australian, because like there's a burger on it called the Bondi Burger, which is super popular. But it's got like chili, this chili sauce that they have. They have cheese, like grilled chicken fillets on like a burger, lettuce, tomato, cheese.
Do you go a single Bondi burger, a double
Oh,
Bondi burger, or a triple Bondi burger?
I do the double Bondi burger with chili. I had 5 chicken tenders, like breaded tender things with garlic sauce and chili sauce. I had large fries and a solo, which is like a
Yum.
lemon squash. It's like a how to describe it to Americans. It's like a soft drink, but it's very lemon based. It's not like a Sprite. It's more
It's like
natural
yellow.
orange. Yeah, it's like yellow. It's really good though.
It's probably not natural yellow, to be fair. That's probably
No,
artificial.
it's
But
probably chemical yellow. But I had I had that, and then I literally head straight back to the house. Caught up with my dad, gave him a big hug. Hadn't seen him in a while. See how he was doing. He actually he made a like a book collage of all the articles from all the races that I've done the past year. So I went through that, which was quite cool.
that's amazing.
Showed them the Com Games medal, which was cool. Their mum and dad have been walking around wearing it around the house. And then went to pick up my rental car, which cost me a bomb.
Yeah, that
Uh,
sucks.
yeah, it was pretty expensive. It was more expensive than I expected, but it's nice to have a car. I can get around, bit of freedom.
Hmm.
But I have a rental car. Picked that up, drove on the wrong side of the road straight away, went on the right side of the road.
Of
So
course.
in Australia, everyone drives on the left side of the road. Everything's the opposite to the US. So I had to get used to that in the first 30 seconds without getting hit by a car. Came back, grabbed my shoes, went for a run down at Cronulla. It was super windy, but it was a nice little 5 mile run. Um, Felt really good because it's not at altitude, I think. Also, getting off the plane, I think I just felt a bit more better getting outside, getting some fresh air. Came back to the house and pretty much just got ready for this podcast. And Mum is bringing out Roger right now for listeners. He has a new Christmas hat. Morgan, you're going to love this. So,
Oh my
everyone,
god.
this is Roger with my mum. He has a turkey hat with Santa Claus, Santa Claus
Oh, that's amazing.
things on. So here's Rog.
Roger
He's
Hall,
gonna,
welcome to the podcast.
yeah. There he is.
Hey, Raj.
Hey.
Don't let Gus see this one.
No, Gus is gonna be very upset. But
But
there's
Roger
his
is
hat.
a very adequate stand-in for when we can't be with Gussie Boy, the
Well, you
CEO.
met Roger for the first time at the airport. You thought he was pretty chill.
He's so chill. I don't know
Yeah,
if he's always like that, but he just does not give a flying,
he doesn't give a
whatever
fuck.
they say. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's so chill. Look at him.
he's so
So
chill.
he's a great
Yeah,
co-mascot for the podcast, I think.
he is. He's our temporary mascot while Gus is on his vacation away from us. Getting looked
Hmm.
after by Alyssa. Thank you, Alyssa, for looking after
Shout
him.
out to Alyssa for
And the
that.
hat goes off. So, but yeah, that's pretty much my lead up to it. I tell you what, though, like it's funny because I think back at like the first movie I watched at the plane. And it feels like days ago. It feels so long
Doesn't it?
ago.
Doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's wild.
Well, my day was very similar, especially in terms of the fact that I just did like the things that I love to do as well. Like we both just came back and just ticked the boxes of yeah, checking in with the things we love. I got off the plane and also went straight to breakfast down the road at a little cafe, having coffee and just some nice brunch type food. Came back here, chilled out for a little bit, and then went for my run down in Centennial Park. And it was crazy because I had so much nostalgia running
Mm.
through Queen's Park and Centennial Park because for those who don't know, Centennial Park is probably the most popular park in Sydney, like in the city area for people to run. And I'm lucky enough to live a 5 or 10 minute jog from it. So I've just like, it was just kind of hitting me being back there, how much I've experienced in the park. Like I would just run by all the different sections because it's a pretty big park. And I'd be like, oh yeah, like I ran my first ever cross country race there. Or like I ran these other races there, or I used to go like bike riding in this little section as a kid. So I was just getting hit by mad nostalgia, while at the same time just an appreciation for how lovely it is to run here, because
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
it's just different from Boulder. And we'll talk more about specific running training differences later. But yeah, just to be able to run in the nice weather on a nice park on grass and dirt and all that was just so amazing. So I actually felt surprisingly good as well, because I thought I was going to feel pretty bad coming off the travel and all that. But I felt good. I was like, hell yeah, let's get after it. No more altitude. And then after that, I came home and also then went down to the beach. Very windy in my neck of the woods as well, but I still jumped in the water, went for a little swim, just a quick dip to get those super healing powers of the salt water. And then I came back here and then I took a bath. If you don't know me,
Yes.
if you don't know me, that is my biggest pleasure in life, is submerging my body in warm water, whether that's a bath or a hot tub or anything similar. That's like my favorite thing to do in the world. So I got on the path. I sent Ollie a picture of my toes. I said, if I'm late to the
I'm
podcast, this is why.
I'm gonna sell that to the highest bidder as well. That feet pick. That's gonna be a big feet pick sell for
Yeah,
me. I mean, like
it's
to
gonna
be
be a big
honest, I think
payday.
when's the last time you had a bath?
See,
It's
this
gonna
is the
be
brutal
a
thing.
long time.
This is the brutal thing is we don't have a bath at our current place, and we didn't have them in our last place. And
Not Sherman
it's
either. Have you
it
ever been to Sherman?
hurts. Yeah, we did. So I would
Oh,
take
we did.
baths in the place before that, but it's just so brutal. I think the reality is you're either a bath person or you're not. You either get it or you don't. And so I walk into a house that doesn't have a bath and it feels half finished to me, whereas other people
Mm,
see a complete house and it just hurts a little bit. And I would pay good extra rent to get a
mm.
bath put into our place if that was a possibility, but unfortunately I don't think they offer that. So while I'm here, I think I'm going to be on a strict 2 bath a day schedule to make up for all the baths that I can't take in Boulder, which is also
Mm.
just really challenging because it's winter there and it's proper winter. It's snow. Do you know how amazing it is to come back from a cold run and get in the bath?
Mate, that's the best thing about it. That's what the bathtub's there for. I mean, like to be
So,
honest, like
yeah.
it's just that's what we did at Wisconsin. We had the hot tub, and every cold run we do, we get straight into the hot tub, whether we were feeling it or
Hmm.
not. We'll just go into the hot tub. So, I mean, my mum's a bath person. We have a big bathtub here. I'm looking forward to my first bath at the house. But the nostalgia hitting you from Centennial must have been amazing because you haven't been. We talked about it on previous pods, but you haven't been back in Australia for 3 years. So how is it feeling being back home? Is it starting to like kind of click in that you're back in Australia, or does it still feel a bit foreign?
No, it really does feel amazing. I'm surprised it feels very just comfortable to be back, which I thought I was going to feel. There's a word for it. I can't think of it. It's like opposite alien syndrome. It's not that at all. That's definitely not the words, but it's like I'm not a tourist because this is my home, but I've been gone now I've lived in the US for over 8 years and I haven't been back to
Mm.
Australia for 3 years. So you almost feel like you're going to feel like an outsider, but honestly, I feel very comfortable being back home, being here in yeah, it just feels familiar and it just feels nice. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm normally pretty chill about that type of stuff, but definitely being back here has it just feels very good to be back home. So I'm very happy that I got to come back for this brief time. Well, you're back for 3 weeks. I'm back for 2 weeks and I'll be back in the US. But no, it feels really good. So very happy to be here, catch up with a few people, but just take it pretty chill. I think that's the plan for both of us.
Definitely, yeah.
And yeah, so moving on from that onto some more real world running news stuff. Our last episode surrounded uh, was about the cross champs, kind of our recap, and we definitely did not take it easy on them. I'll say we were a little bit harsh,
No,
perhaps, in our recap of the race. And I think Sound Running, I guess Sound Running is a company. Sound Running as a company or a brand
yeah,
got a lot of the heat because they were the organizers of the race. And so, in response to that, we got a long message from the Sound Running Instagram. And so I think it's from Jesse himself, I imagine, who runs Sound Running. And he's kind of running through all the different points that we hit. And he's given his response to them. And so we both felt like we should kind of go through it and read his message, because this isn't an apology. It's more just us figuring out how the sport works and sharing that journey with our listeners. Kind of just delving more into the nitty gritty of how this stuff actually works and why things are the way that they are. So, to start off his message, he said, "Wanted to give you a look inside the XC event as you have a voice in the sport, blah, blah, blah. Gold label. Being a gold label meet does mean that there are points on the table for competing athletes. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean you get any help from World Athletics or any money. It actually costs us more money, about 8K, because of the additional testing standards and required signage. We get nothing but the ability to put that gold label logo on our event. Knowing how important the points are is the only reason we kept the label. It's honestly more work and no real help to the actual production or budget of the event." So that's the first point, is the gold label stuff. And I think that's pretty fair. I guess, would you say it's really good that they did get the gold label, because I think that was a big reason why people went to compete in it. But would you say that you're surprised that a gold label event doesn't get any support from World Athletics to help make it a better event, or do you think that makes sense?
It's hard because I don't see like this is like you said. It's hard because we're trying to figure out how the sport works and how it's run. And you would expect World Athletics to help fund a gold label meet, bring in the right amount of people, the right talent, and get the hype around a gold level event because it is a lot of points. But I would think too, it's hard to realistically rely on just one organization like World Athletics. A lot of those other meets that are gold label usually have a major sponsor. I think Fitness Bank was the major sponsor that Jesse had for the Cross Champs because it was called Fitness Bank Cross Champs, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So like sponsors like that hopefully help with the funding so you can break even maybe with that 8K or hopefully exceed it so you can actually make some money off the meet. But yeah, I am a bit surprised it costs that much money for a cross country gold label. I would expect that type of money or a bit more for like a track gold label because I know that would be much more expensive, probably harder to set up and maintain just with facilities, events, having more officials and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough because you don't really know, or we don't really go through the process. We turn up and compete and race, and we can be critical of what a meet is like, but we don't really set it up or go through that strenuous kind of ordeal of trying to get that gold label.
Yeah.
But with Jesse, I think, yeah, like just having that information, it's just nice to know that's what he had to go through to get that gold label. But the other little little problem that was there was the we didn't know that those points actually don't matter because you have to do 3 cross country races. We didn't know this. I don't think a lot of
So
people did. They thought,
that's the big
yeah,
one. That's the big thing which there's confusion about. And even Dathan to this day is a little bit confused about how World Athletics has worded it, or how they've kind of portrayed it to us. And I think Kyle Merber in his newsletter wrote it out pretty clearly that it seems like it's not one performance in a gold label cross country meet that gets you points for your 10K ranking. It's actually, you need 3, and maybe it's the average of them, I'm guessing.
yeah,
So none of us knew that going into that. So that's
no,
other key information, which
that's
I don't,
tough, isn't it?
yeah, you would expect someone to know that. I guess it's our job to know it for us, but then you would also think your coach, your agent, and the people putting on the gold label meet would also know it. So it is a big just head scratcher that, like, that can be how the sport works, that at the top level we're not made aware of that stuff. But going back for a second, I am surprised that World Athletics doesn't help support a gold label cross country meet, especially
Yeah,
one that's more up and coming and is, you know, Jesse and Sound Running, they were doing everything they could to find sponsors. It's not like they weren't
yeah.
trying to do that. So I would expect a bit more support there, but I
It's
guess
definitely
it is
interesting
what it
too.
is.
It being in the US, you'd think that they would like the World Athletics would jump onto something like that, get a cross country meet in the US because we know Madrid, for example, is a gold label cross country meet. Seems to be quite popular. Um, it's interesting that World Athletics wouldn't jump at the opportunity to invest in a cross country meet in the US, considering like the market is probably a good place to set something like that up with NCAA cross and cross country in general is quite big in the US. So that was interesting to hear that they wouldn't. invest in it. Maybe it's a trial thing. Maybe they look at the response to the athletes turning up this year, and next year Jesse is able to get some help maybe from What Athletics,
Well, it
keeping it a
seems like
gold
they don't.
label.
It seems like they don't fund any of the cross country meets. I would imagine, which seems weird. But
Yeah,
you
so
mentioned
probably just
Madrid, but yeah, it's weird. They're all in Europe pretty much. All the
yeah,
gold label cross country meets, and I think there's like 6 or 7 of them in Spain. So it is a really weird setup. That obviously, if you need 3 races to get to count for your ranking, if you're based in Europe, your way it's a big advantage because you can just easily travel to all these meets. Whereas if there's one gold label meet in America and you're based in America, I mean, it's going to be very difficult to travel to do the other to get 3 of those races in. So it is just a really weird system. It seems like right now, and I guess they're still figuring that stuff out. But yeah, it'd be good if we just there's more transparency with that type of stuff. I would say,
yeah,
but
there should be because, like for example, Emily Infield, right? She literally said in the press conference, "I'm coming here for the points. I'm here for the points. That's what people are here for." And now those points are useless. She probably should have just gone to BU, try to run a fast time, maybe get a standard or something like that for the 5K. So like for them, it's opportunities that they need to have. Yeah, like you said, more transparency, so they know, okay, this meet I have to run 2 other cross country races. That's going to be hard for me to do. I can't go to Europe at this time of the year. I'm probably just going to go run a 5K in BU, or I'm just going to do the cross country meet with the team, or something like that. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see like it'd be interesting to know actually how the Madrid meet works. Like what funding they must get pretty good funding from other companies and stuff. Maybe that's how they're able to run that meet. Is just the
well,
other third
there
parties.
I don't. So the Spanish cross country meets, there's not just the Madrid one. I don't even think that's necessarily the biggest one. They're they're really old, like big meets that have been around for a long time, and I think they just have a lot more money behind them. They're just much more established. So I think it kind of makes sense that they're able to function
Mm.
on a way higher level. But moving on from that, the second point that sound that Jesse brings up is the course, and he wrote to us, as a new event in Austin, we were denied access to all public parks and golf courses. Our only option was to find private land to keep it in Austin. We had the same worries about the course, so completely understand as it wasn't our first choice in a line of venues. It won't be the course in the future for several reasons. We will get coaches to sign off on the course early to make sure everyone is on board. So that's obviously, that makes sense. And I think that's a pretty big tick, getting the coaches to sign off on it, because that's been the big thing for the last 2 years, has been issues related to the course, because just the injury risk and just, yeah, you just want it to be on a good course that suits everyone and makes for better racing. Moving on from that, he says, why Austin? Being in Austin is super important to the future of the event, as we will always get more sponsorship money with all brands in town. And this will help continue to raise the prize purse and event as a whole. Being in Austin during that week puts the sport on display in front of many decision makers in the sport. It really does make a big difference. We had a dozen conversations with new sponsors because of it being the same week as the running event. So he goes on to talk a bit more about that. And so I think that makes it pretty clear that he plans to line it up with the running event in Austin every
Yeah,
year, which those reasons that he just listed do make a lot of sense, because I think I imagine, I can't remember exactly how we said it, but I imagine we said, yeah, you could, if you can't put it in a good course in Austin, you should just host it, put it in a different city where you can go on a good course. But this argument does make a lot of sense to host it in conjunction with the running event and with all the big wigs that are around during that time. So that's pretty logical as well.
yeah. I think I like what he said about the cross country course, like being able to look at something like that and say, we can do better than this, we can fix it and work together as a community. I love that idea. And the Austin, I understand now because like we didn't even know about this Austin meet, the Austin convention for sports, like specialized running stores and everything like that. It's really cool. Seeing what they do and like having like the kind of booths and setups, and you can wander around and see all these different products and people putting on a display of what they have in the coming future. Having brands like that and people that are invested in the sport jumping into an event like cross country, pro cross country race is a really cool idea. So definitely makes sense to have that in Austin to try and get those more of those sponsors involved with that meet. So that all definitely makes sense. It just sucks though that he couldn't get access to public park or golf course or anything like that. It just even I don't know. It's just like, I mean, we know Texas. Texas has so many places you could run. Apparently, there's like cross country courses here and there, and there's big parks, and yeah. So hopefully that will get fixed in the future, and they can find a better place to run it, because it would be a really sick event to be able to do in Austin. Austin's a really cool place to go, and it'd be very, very awesome to be able to do that again in a much better course.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you're saying, and pretty linked to that. One of the things that we kind of joked was that we didn't even think that there were people from the running event at the meet, which I guess seems like we were just wrong about, because he says that they bussed about 200 running event guests to the course. And so there were in attendance a lot of pretty important people from the running event, which is pretty cool to hear. So that's a point that we were just wrong on. And it's good to be corrected for that. And he goes on to elaborate on how important it will be to try get the course closer to the running event, so that this cross country race becomes a bigger part of the running event, hopefully in the future. So hearing more about the struggles that he has, and then also the long-term plan that he has for the meet, I think, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to apologize, but I'm going to say, um, I think it makes a lot more sense now. And hopefully these changes definitely do happen in the future, and then it continues to be a better and better
Mm.
event, and we can continue to show up every single year and do it, because at the end of the day, we had a really fun time. It was a great trip.
It
So
was so much
on
fun to do
yeah,
a
if we
team
can
thing like
keep
that.
yeah, just like it was just like so awesome. So if we can continue to do stuff like that, I think we definitely want to do it, especially this time of year. I guess the only thing that would probably take us away from competing in that cross country race is if there is a really good opportunity at the BU track to go run a fast time, and we feel like we need to do that. That is the shitty thing with our sport being, at the end of the day, we are track runners. That's what our sport is. So if we have to go get something done on the track, it's always gonna be our first priority. But yeah, I think both of us would love to continue to do that meet every single year, and hopefully just get better people out there, better teams, you know?
Definitely. I mean, I don't think we need to apologize. I think we definitely said things that we just didn't. We felt at the time being critical about something that, like, for example, like the course and the situation, but having Jesse come and respond to us and give us that information, like, that's important to be able to have that transparency, like we talked about. I think the one thing that I have issues with this sport is that there's not a lot of transparency. There's not a lot of people being able to tell you, like, what requirements are, what things go, like what it means, or what effort goes into an event. Like, it's just nice to have a two-way communication with like a meet, an organized meet, and the athlete. I think that's just a cool thing, because then you know exactly what people have gone through to set it up, how it's been run, and what you could do to be more positive in that change. Like, for example, with the course, or with getting sponsors. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's good to get that insight, and it's nice to be able to share that now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, like you said, I'd love to do it again. It was so much fun. And doing a team event like that, you just don't get to do that much as a professional athlete in our sport. So
Yeah. I can't wait now. Every year I feel like you are going to have to go out really hard the first mile. You know what I mean? It's a bit of a
yeah,
Sam Parsons at Fifth
I got to do
Ave.
a Sam Parsons. Yeah,
I
Sam
don't think
Parsons.
there's any way for you to do that race without having a 10-second lead a mile into it at this point, because
Yeah,
it was just so cool to see. And also it worked pretty well. I mean, you ended up coming third. So
yeah, I was
pretty
able to
good
hang on,
result.
so that worked out pretty well.
I think you got to keep that going. But yeah, so I do agree with you that it's cool to hopefully kind of shed positive light on it and have positive change by opening up the dialogue to both sides of the story, because there's always two sides to the story. And I think it's really cool to try us learn about the process and then also share it with our listeners so they can kind of have those insights as well and learn with us. So we're all learning here, you know, at the end
We're
of
all
the
learning.
day, we don't really know what's going on. We're pro runners and we don't even know what's happening. So who
Yeah,
knows? But we're all trying to learn and get better. So that's that. I would say those are the cross champs loose ends. I think we've gotten more than enough content out of that one cross country race. So
mm.
I
We're
think
putting
it's
a lot of
time.
content in that. Few episodes in,
Yeah, I
few
think it's
episodes.
time to close the book on cross champs until next year. What do you think?
Close the chapter. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
we'll close it for George as well. We'll close it.
yeah.
Um,
Unfortunate that George isn't here to close his own book, but we'll do it for him in his
we'll do
honor.
it for him.
And next year
He's
we'll be back to open it up and get it going again. But yeah,
close it in his honor.
but because
In honor of George.
he had some
He
harsh
was
words
pretty
to say.
he was pretty critical because George is usually very zen, very middle ground. You are also very zen. I'm usually the one that says the dumbest shit and I get in trouble for it, which I should. But George
George
is
had some
very
things to
zen.
say.
He had some things to say about that cross country meet, and that was funny to see because him expressing his opinion was enjoyable to watch. It was like watching me. Um, but
You'd be like,
nah,
"Oh, I can't believe you just said that."
yeah, I was like, oh, is this? I'm rubbing off on him.
Yeah,
But yeah, we'll close that chapter for him.
you're welcome, George. So the final, as I said, I think this is going to be a short episode because we don't have
Yeah,
George, and we'll get George on. He'll be back next week, and there's a lot that has happened. Well, not a lot, but there's been some very interesting stuff that has happened in the running world that we're kind of saving for next week. For example, European champs and Mark Scott leaving Bauman. We're going to save that for next week. That's a little
when
teaser
George
right
is here.
there. That's a little teaser for you guys for next week.
Make sure you tune in. Tune in next week.
But the final
Right.
thing that I think I wanted to kind of reflect on with you since we just arrived back home is the training setup here versus the US. And obviously, it's a little bit different for us because this isn't our permanent setup. We're just here on holiday, essentially. But whenever I'm back here, I'm just thinking, could I be a pro runner here? And so I mean, obviously, we're both based in the US and we're both been based in the US for a very long time. And there are very real reasons for that. But do you think that you could be a pro runner based here in Australia?
There's three levels or elements that I have for this question that you've asked. It's a great question too, and it'd be interesting to see what you say as well, Morgs. But the first element I'll go through is financial stuff. If I financially had the same kind of setup, set support that I have in the US, and then I was able to train here, I would say it could be possible. But the factor is that if you have that resource, does other people have that resource as well? You know, because I think in the US, what's amazing about what we have over there is that there's a lot of international and American athletes on great scholarships. Sorry, great contracts and scholarships in college. Great contracts, able to train together, work together, and create this. Push each other
Great
to better
environment.
better levels. It's a great environment. If I am paid the exact same money, but it's just me in Australia, it would be really tough. I think I've relied. I think a lot of my success has been should be credited to my teammates as well. To be able to train with Joe and Morgan and George and now Mario and Yard is just it's a blessing. So it's just something would I be able to get that same support? Probably not. It's just being an Australian. I'll be maybe train with Stewie, maybe able to train with the MTC guys, which would be amazing. But I'd probably have to move to Melbourne. I'd have to go to Europe for 3 months, 4 months of the year because that's where all the racing is. It's very, very hard, long travel to get there. Financially, that would be cool to have that set up, but I think it'd be quite difficult. I don't think I'd be able to perform on the same level just from training standpoint. And then the other element I have is the trails, the roads, the space. Sydney is a good place. There's some good places to run, but it's not very well maintained. I mean, I ran down at Cronulla, and it's just it's pavement some of the time, and then when you get to the trail, it's just rocky and just it's not maintained. It's just a bit dodgy. But you go to Boulder, you go to Flagstaff. I can't believe I'm saying Flagstaff as a positive here. You go to Boulder, you go to Flag. You go to all these places in the US, not just there, and you got great places to run, great trails, very well maintained, tracks everywhere, accessible tracks. Like in Australia, you have to pay to enter a lot of tracks unless you're at maybe you're fortunate enough to be able to get free entry into some of them, but it is quite difficult to get into entry to tracks. I'm very lucky because the local track, Sutherland, it's free to get on. It's public track, but that's a very hard thing. And to be professional, just to have that peace of mind, for us to have the peace of mind of going, I'm running an 18-mile long run. I can go to, I can go anywhere. I can run on the trails. I can run on Lobo. I can run on Monarch, around the res. I can run all these great places. You can go to big techs. You can go to all these Mongolia, anywhere. Great running. Whereas
You
here,
say
it's
you say
centered
Mongol.
upon
Did you say you say
Mongolia,
Mongolia? Have you been doing your long
Mongolia.
runs in Mongolia? You've been
Yeah,
going to Mongolia for your
I've
long
been
runs.
traveling to Mongolia for my long Mags. Sorry,
Magnolia.
Mongolia, Magnolia. Been going to
No,
Mongolia.
Boulder does have a lot of Boulder does
Yeah,
have a lot of long runs, but that's the one
but
thing that I will push back on you though, because I would
we have Centennial
say
Park.
I would
That's it.
say there are great places to run here, but it's just you're just saying kind of specifically where you live, because there's a lot of places in the
Yeah,
US that are really shit to run if you live there. But I'm sure if you lived in a slightly different place in Sydney
I'm
or
sure if you
out
lived
of
in
Sydney,
Melbourne, there's places in Melbourne.
there's really good places to
Places,
run here.
yeah, there's places out of Sydney. Falls Creek is probably a good place to run. There are those places, but I'm thinking of like being based here, like not travel, not being. I guess you'd have to make that sacrifice and train somewhere where it's better. But I feel like the options in America, particularly where we are in Boulder, is pretty lovely. So, and then the third element to all of that is definitely for me the lifestyle. I feel like the lifestyle in Australia, I would get carried away a bit too much. Um, I think that just been surfing, being with my brother, being with mates, going out might be a bit of a um, deterrent to my
Always a bad boy.
performance.
Always a bad
No, no,
boy.
no, not a bad boy. I just get influenced
Always.
very easily.
If you guys
But
didn't know it yet, always a bad boy.
I'm not a
Now
bad
you
boy.
know.
I'm a good boy. I just think in general, like being in the US with a team, with a coach, everyone's focused on the same goal. Also, is just very helpful to keep me in line. Whereas if I'm by myself, I'm bored. I get, my brother goes out to the pub, I go with him, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what am I doing at the pub at midnight? I
2
should be at
a.m.,
home sleeping.
100 beers deep,
100 beers
long run
deep,
in the morning.
couple of kebabs deep. Do my long
Kebab
run the next
incoming.
day. Yeah, kebab incoming. Do my long run the next day and still crush it. I don't know if I
Yeah.
could do that forever. So, I think you could do it. It would just not be ideal. It wouldn't be optimum. I think optimum and Ollie. I don't know about Morgan. Obviously, he would say his side of it, but optimal Ollie, I think, performs the best in the environment that he's in with a great team of people that are pushing me to get to that level, to be able to be around those trails and that type of running, and also having that financial help and support. I think is just like it just has put me to where I am now. So it would be you would be able to do it in Australia, but I don't think I'd be able to hit the same level. To be honest, that's why I feel like I've made that sacrifice to be in the US.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'd be interested to see what you think after I've said all
Yeah.
that shit.
No, I mean, obviously, I'm very much in the same page as you, and that's why I've been based in the US for 8 years. It's to try to be the best runner that I can, and that's the place where I think it's going to happen for, yeah, all the reasons that you mentioned. The way I would put it, pretty simply, from my perspective, is that I think Australia is an amazing place to run. I think I can live here and I can be such a good runner. Like, it's just lovely places to run. I think there's a really nice running community here in Sydney, and I know there's a really good one in Melbourne and in the other cities as well. But when you're talking about pro running and you're talking about trying to perform on the best level, get the most out of you and compete in these big meets, there just comes into play all these logistical issues. And that's what you mentioned as well. And for those logistical reasons, you're taking care of a lot better being based in the US compared to Australia. And as you said, that's talking about, being closer to where the good races are. I think it's well known that a lot of the good Australian athletes like Stewie, they live on the road for 5 to 6 months of the year. So it's really challenging. I honestly don't know how they do it. And then just the money aspect of it, and there's just a lot more depth in the US as well, training opportunities, training partners, etc. Places that where there are a lot of pro runners based there. So for all those reasons, I agree, and that's why I'm based in the US and why I've been based there for so long in my pursuit of trying to be the best runner that I can. However, I am very uh, entertained by the idea of at some point trying to be a pro runner based in Australia. And that would obviously be like towards the end of my career. I think it'd be pretty cool to try and do that, maybe like as a marathoner or whatever, where you're not traveling to as many races. You just pick like a couple of big ones
Yeah.
that you focus on, so you're not on the road as much. And I think that would be a great balance between being able to live in this beautiful place and train in this beautiful place, and then go on these trips, which are just a lot shorter. And marathon training, to me at least, seems to be a lot more individual anyway. It seems like it's not really as much about big training groups. So yeah, that's like kind of a more romantic view on it, is towards the end of our careers, moving back to Australia and trying to do it here. I think that'd be really cool.
That would be pretty sick. The only actually other factor that I forgot to mention, the altitude. It's easy to
True.
find altitude places in America. Australia, we do have places. We have Thredbo, Jindabyne in New South Wales. We have Falls Creek in Victoria. Um, like, how do you think that would factor in for marathon training later on? Like, you could do training camps there, I'm guessing, like, or you could just go
Yeah,
overseas.
the reality is the altitude training here is pretty shit compared to what you're going to find in America or even Europe. So it just depends how much you care about that, though, because I think
Yeah.
I think altitude is very important, but I don't think it's. I think
I know
sometimes it's a little
someone that
bit
cares about it a
over.
lot.
It sometimes is a little bit overhyped, because I mean we just saw the Australian record get broken for the men's and women's, and I don't know exactly what Brett and Shanae are doing for altitude, if they have altitude tents or something like that, but I believe that they just do most of their training in Melbourne, so they're not living at altitude at least, so they're
Yeah.
making it work. But yeah, I think if you really care about the altitude, then yeah, you want to be based in a Flagstaff or a Boulder ideally. I don't think you can do that in Australia, but yeah, that is definitely a factor as well that leads you towards the US. But I think if I was living in Australia to trying to run, I just wouldn't care about that.
Mm.
It'd
No, I
just be
think I
like
wouldn't either.
something nice. It'd be something cool to do, like maybe go on a training camp to Fords Creek and get the benefit for a little bit. But I wouldn't over. I would try not to over hype the altitude
I
aspect.
think it's a big thing now, I think. But if you look at like you race at sea level, you can train at sea level, probably just perform as best as you can and you'll get a result there. Like I do think there is a benefit with altitude, but I don't think the best runner is always going to come out on top if they just get the right, setup and schedule and training in. But
Yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot of
I
other
don't know.
important stuff out there.
A lot of
So
factors in there, but it'd be interesting.
yeah, so
I'm in,
who
Morgan. Let's do
knows?
it.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll be back here trying to be
We'll be back here
pro
running the
runners.
marathon. Yeah,
2032, Brisbane.
2032. Brizzy.
It's gonna happen.
We'll be on the Gold
Oh
Coast with our budgie smugglers on, doing high
yeah,
knees.
I can't wait. I can't wait. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just a shorter episode today. I don't know, Ollie. Is there anything else that you want to discuss?
Uh, no, I don't think so. I think in general, we should mention though that the pods for the next few weeks are going to be kind of split up on the cameras with George, and that'll be fun to do again. I do miss. I think I have to say I do miss doing it together on the table. There's something about
Yeah,
it, the vibe, having the
yeah,
boys together. It's like the Knights of the Round Table kind of thing, except
exactly
we're
like the
not.
Knights of the Round Table.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I
no,
was thinking as well.
solving the world's issues. But no, in general, no, I think that was it. That was good, and I'm excited to come over tomorrow.
Oh yeah, Ollie's coming to my place
Barbecue
for
at
a barbecue.
yeah, my parents are gonna come and hang out with Morgan's parents. We're gonna have a barbecue. It's gonna be breaking bread, the Last Supper.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have any friends really, so I see,
you
because
do have friends. That just
you don't really count because you're my roommate. We live together. So apart from
yeah.
Ollie, I
I'm
haven't
a light.
invited anyone. So
Yeah, I only got I'm just convenient.
well, no, I guess you are my friend and my roommate, but it's kind of cheating. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, it's
I
a cheat
I
code.
don't I don't have anyone else to invite, so it's
Well, if
like,
I can
hey,
get
Ollie,
Chris,
you
Chris as a friend. Chris, I
all
consider
right?
you a close friend.
Chris can be my friend. That'd be
Crispy,
lovely.
yeah. All right.
But yeah, I think that's it for today. Apologies for if you're watching the video that I've been in the dark the whole time. I believe I'm quite backlit, but hopefully,
You know what you look. You know what you look like. You know those guys that like are anonymous and they talk about their story
hmm I'm
when
anonymous.
they try to cover their face. That's you. You know when they're like, oh, like this guy
Yeah,
was with the mafia or the cartel and he talks about his story and you're like blacked out.
Yeah, I might have to put a voice changer on today just to really lean into that. But no, I think that's it for episode. What episode is it? 64? Yeah, I probably said
64,
that at
yeah.
the start. Thank you,
Yep.
everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week with a bigger and hopefully better podcast with George back in the mix. So look forward to that one. But that's it from us. We'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.